Okay, well, hello, and thank you for joining the Unregulated Leadership podcast, where we're talking all things leadership. I'm Chris Oliveri, second year doctoral student at William James College, and with me is my co-host, Dr. Lavonya Douglas.
Hey everyone, my name is Lavonya Douglas. I am one of the originators of Unregulated Leadership, and we're excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. And today we welcome Matt Gagnon, founder of the program Atomic Mornings, executive coach, TEDx keynote speaker with Living with a Courageous Heart, and a believer in comeback stories that reinforce the message that so many of us need to hear. Stop trying to reinvent yourself and rediscover yourself. So truly excited for this conversation and thankful to have him join us, fresh off the heels after sharing the stage with top industry leaders at the Gathering Summit in Alberta, Canada last month. So congratulations, Matt, and how's it going?
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm delightful.
That is the word. Delightful.
That's the word
Awesome.
of the day. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are delighted to have you with us this evening.
Thank you.
And just full disclosure here that this is like, the kickoff for the podcast. And I'm still like, for a moment, I was still trying to figure out like, how did I find you? How did this connection happen? And actually, I'm remembering it is all the videos through like William James that we have to watch during classes. I think it was one of those defaults that it went to, or there were like, it probably aligned with the topics that it was like use of self or something, one of those courses where it might have kind of tipped off. Don't know. The stars aligned somehow in the LinkedIn world, but found you. And, just really a firm believer in when you allow yourself to feel all of the feels and kind of sit in that uncomfortable silence, like not fighting against the tide, the message you need oftentimes finds you. Right. So I came across your TEDx talk, winter of 2024, I would say, with an incredibly dark transitional time that I was going through. And your talk started off with a fun fact, being the world, like that you were like the world champion of hide and seek. Right. And that instantly like opened the floodgates. Right. So I knew where this was going and kept listening intently and just felt this intense need to connect, follow your story, and compelled to reach out to you. Right. So I remember kind of just reaching out, really just kind of in this weird state of like, how did you do it? Like listening to your story, like, how did you do it? And your response was simple. It was like, start writing your story. And as simple as that response was, it was insanely loaded because like those simple words have such heavy meaning, right? And that's the cornerstone essentially of what you do, like having people understand that they're responsible for their actions that lead to the outcome, right? So if you're not happy with what you're doing, step back, start doing that self-reflection, undo what's been ingrained into our heads all these years. And that work is so, so difficult. So Matt, long intro there, but I feel your story resonates with so many. So do you mind sharing it?
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm pumped to be here. And so, yeah, I'm still curious too how we connected, but I don't care anymore. It's awesome. I'm glad we're here. So, one of the things you touched upon is like, our actions and the choices we have. And there's one expression that drives me a little nutty, and that's it is what it is. There's two different ways you can use it. And one way is like kind of like just like, okay, like it is what it is. Let's deal with this. Let's move on. And then there's a lot of people who just use it as a victim too. Well, it is what it is. That's the way my life is. I'm like, no, it is what you want it to be. And that's where you have this choice. Like it doesn't have to be what it is. You can change that. And that's the way it was for me in my circumstances. Back in 2015 is when my health just tanked, like burned out, had a plethora of like illnesses that they discovered that I knew I was battling, but I didn't know what it was. Just thought I was kind of going crazy. Felt lazy all of a sudden, unmotivated. But they discovered like one, I had narcolepsy. Like I was running on fumes and just falling asleep all of a sudden. It was really catching up with me because all the caffeine I used to drink wasn't working anymore. And to give perspective, like in my 20s, I was averaging 15 cans of Red Bull a day, and 60 milligrams of Adderall from 25 to 30. I should be dead, but I'm not. So I developed that. I had something called Addison's disease. They found out where my cortisol and adrenaline stopped producing. It's adrenal insufficiency thing. And so there's a bunch of different things. Plus, we found a brain injury from 4 years of high school football, and it took a couple decades for it to show its ugly. And that's probably the one that was that's probably the one that's caused the most. I even hate to say it, but like it was suffering at times. I mean, daily suicidal thoughts, like all these things in my head, impulse control, obsessive thinking. So I had some scans done and we saw that. But either way, like I could no longer do this corporate retail world that I had. It was burning me out. And I was working constantly. I had, so here I am on medical leave. I've got an infant kid, wife out of work from that also. Brand new house just built in a really nice neighborhood. I've lost almost all my money, medical bills. I'm in debt, 3 months behind on my mortgage. And hey, let's start a new business. Unfortunately, I was halfway through a coaching program that I decided to go back to school for. And that was ungodly expensive. But I was already setting myself up to leave. I just didn't ask for it this way. I remember praying for it. I was like, God, get me out of this thing. And I was like, October, right? I'm going to be on my own. I'm going to be doing this. He's like, April. I'm like, no, this is not the answer I wanted, but I called HR April 10th when I was in the parking lot of a doctor's office after just like one more diagnosis. And I was like, I just remember holding the phone kind of shaking. And I finally hit that number because I know like once you go on medical leave, people disappear in your life at work. They go away. They don't want to talk to you. There's a stigma that goes with it. Like, oh, he must be in trouble and he's avoiding it. Like there's a thing and I've seen it. And so when I made that call, I remember saying as I'm going on medical leave. And then after that, like, it's just blank. Like, I don't remember what else would happen, but it was a huge transformative moment. And so that's when I started my journey.
Wow. There's definitely a lot there, and it's loaded, it's heavy. And to your point, right? Like, how did you feel? Like it's there was something inherently within you that kind of prepped you for it, right? Like
Yeah.
you were going through this coaching program. What do you know, like what drove you to that? Was it something you always wanted to do, or did you kind of like there was something inside where you're like, I'm going through this and I want to
Yeah.
figure out like how it could help people?
I didn't even know it was an industry. I mean, it's still fairly young as an industry. It's been around since the 90s, really. Um, but I didn't know it existed. All I knew is I loved serving people, being a servant leader. I was really good at leadership in my retail world. That's why I was responsible for so many people. I was on a executive, kind of track in life in that. And I invested in people first. I invested in my people first, and then we made a shitload of money because of it. So it worked out. And then I realized I was like, I want to do that all the time. Like I want to work with people who do want to be coached because some people just don't. And I met somebody through while I was working with Under Armour. I met this trainer who came in to do kind of like a behavioral assessment program. And it was kind of like a Myers-Briggs thing. It was called Insights. And I remember talking to this guy as he was setting up. He was playing some music, and I love music. We started talking. And I was like, tell me more about this. Like, how do you get into this? And then he introduced me to like the world of coaching, and he told me about the Coaches Training Institute program. And I was intrigued. I was like, wow, all right. And so we talked more, we connected more, and I started exploring it. And it took me a few more years. I think it was 2012 I heard about that. And then by 2014 in the fall, September 28th in the fall, I finally signed up. And again, it was like, over 15,000 for that program. And even though I was still working, like I was check to check at the time because, with my son in the house, like it was, I was like, there's no way I can afford this whole program. So I signed up for one class. I was like, look, I'll just sign up for the one class. And I talked to the people. They're like, well, you could sign up for all of them and make payments. I was like, my credit's gone right now. There's no way. And they're like, no. You can just, there's no financing. You just pay before the next class. I'm like, all right. So things started to align. And at the end of my first class on September 28th, I had my first client. And I didn't advertise that I was a coach yet. Like that wasn't anywhere. But some kid found me on LinkedIn, an 18-year-old kid, Walter. He lets me tell the story. And he was looking for a mentor kind of coach thing. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I can do that. And I realized like what 18-year-old is searching for a life coach and mentor on LinkedIn. I was like, this kid's got to be special. And at the time he could afford $5, for 30 minutes. It was the best payday of my life. Like it showed up on my phone. And, I had a 6-figure income already, but like that $5 showed up and it told me, someone pays me $5 to do my dream job. Someone will pay me 50,000. Like that's all I needed. I just need one person. And that set it off. And so I worked with clients weekends, sometimes nights. I was working a lot of hours, but you know what? Working extra hours was taking me closer to my dream versus working extra hours in my current job was a hamster wheel. So it wasn't going to pay off. I was willing to work extra hours to get closer to a dream. And so, yeah, the seed was already planted. It was also really annoying because I finally found the thing that I was meant to do and I couldn't have it. I didn't know how to transition. It's like, wow, like I've been shown what I'm supposed to do. It's the first time I've ever felt like an A student and I can't have it yet. Everyone's like, oh man, you're meant for this. And I'm like, great. And I was like, I can't have it full time. I was like, and I threw a tantrum here and there. But then once my back was against the wall, I realized how creative and resourceful I am.
Yeah.
And when I was sick, laying in bed and I couldn't move at times, and I just remember asking the question, for me, it's I'm faith-based. So I was just asking God, I was just like, instead of asking like, why is this happening to me? I was like, what are you trying to teach me? And since I was always hell on wheels and always moving like lightning, it was kind of like, do I have your attention finally? I was like, yes. And that's when I learned I could do more with less movement and I could be really efficient with time. And that's when I discovered you need to make time for your values. And I had to rediscover those too, because I had to fill my cup. It was empty. It's all right if work is one of your values and it gives you energy in life. It can't be your only value. So that was another start to the journey.
A lot of times I hear you talking and I feel like this is my story. Oh my God, where has he been? Oh my, like legit. Like I just left my job October 21st of this year. And I felt very similar. Like the way that the things that were happening just felt like this can't be real. Like they are here to completely sabotage my whole life. And it's like, you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and leave because I can't be miserable. Like I know that God has a purpose for my life and there's a plan. So just sitting in this space just because it's a good government job, no. And I'm 22 years. So people were like, "You only got 3 more years," and I said, "You want me to be miserable three more years? That's not gonna happen." So I'm gonna just go ahead and go.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard. I find it. How do you not only share your story, but help people see that they have the same thing inside of them. They can do the same thing. They don't have to just suck it up for 7 more years. How do you help them see, like, no, you can do this today too. This is something that you can do too.
Absolutely. I think the first thing to realize is that just because you feel like you're called for something more doesn't mean you're an ungrateful person for what you have. That's the first piece of guilt we need to get over. Because people are going to tell you if you share your dream with them, they're like, why would you want that? You have a great job. You make a great salary. You have responsibilities too. You have a mortgage. You have kids. Like, oh, and you can't make money doing that. All of these things, people just try and scare you away from pursuing what you're called to do. And the other realization too is just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're supposed to do it. I was really good at what I did, but I could be phenomenal at the thing I'm meant to do. So I could be good at any job I try. That's just who I am. I'd find a way. But doesn't mean what I'm meant to do.
That's good.
So when you know what you're meant to do, it's a job that you would do for free if you could. That's a dream job.
Mhm.
That's a dream job. And the thing that other people need to realize is, first, get it out of your head that it's not possible. That how can I make money doing that? Or like, just stop that. That squashes dreams. First, just look at it. It's free to study. It's free to look for information. It's free to talk to people. Do that. What are you really scared of? Are you scared of you might really go after it? Are you terrified that you might actually get enough information that you're going to want this thing? So I believe in, I remember the first day I went on medical leave, I made a list of about, I think it was like 32 people that I knew of or didn't know virtually and in my community that I thought were fascinating. They were interesting people. And I wanted to know their story.
Mhm.
So I reached out to all of them and I was like, hey, do you have time for a coffee or virtual coffee? And first, a lot of people are kind of like, what do you want? And I'm like, I honestly, I don't want anything from you. I want to hear your story. I'd like to know how you got to where you are and what that was like. Then people put their guard down. And most of them said yes, and everyone will ask the question. If you have a good conversation, they'll say, well, what can I do for you?
Mm.
And I got really comfortable with answering that. And it was usually just like, this was amazing. Who do you know that I could talk to that also has a great story, that I should listen to? And, here's what I'm working on in life right now. And so, yeah, who do you know? And it expands the network. So there's more conversations. One of them was with a program leader with the coaching school I went to. I couldn't afford the final half of it, the certification process. Like, it was going to be over $5,000. She found out about my knowledge of LinkedIn and how I leveraged that to get clients, and how I leveraged it for recruiting in my past, how I leveraged it to always get a job when I needed one. And she was like, you know what? We'll hire you to recruit people to the program in Austin, Texas, where I was living at the time, and we'll pay for your certification. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, shit. So,
Mhm.
I mean, you just don't know what's possible till you ask for what you need. And so that's a big lesson too. No one climbs a mountain alone. And I realized I need to learn how to ask for help.
That's so good.
So yeah, I like to serve those who serve others, and I'm the same way, and I need to let someone serve me. So I learned to ask for help. Doesn't mean that I didn't have victim moments where I got mad, where I had like people that I got to know in men's groups where it's just like, man, you got a ton of money and I'm floundering here, I'm dying, like help me, but they didn't. And it doesn't mean that they weren't my friends. Actually, they were really good friends by not bailing me out. They knew I was okay. They knew I hadn't hit bottom yet. I just felt like I had, you know. They let me, if I had really hit crisis, I know some of my friends would have stepped in and be like, what can we do to help you? But they knew I was going to be all right. And that's why those are really great friends. There was a moment where like someone did help my family out with the GoFundMe, and that was humbling as hell. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I had to be broken open in order to really experience transformation and what I was
Mhm.
capable of. And it was mind blowing. And not having money to buy resources, to not buy software or fancy websites or crazy business cards or like all these different things. Um, I had to create a grassroots program. So I had a free LinkedIn page. It's free. It's like, do people understand this? This is free. It's an organic, it would get the best organic flow of traffic without having to pay for it. Every other social media platform, you got to pay to get traffic for the most part. So I wrote, and I wrote from the heart. I wrote real shit. Sometimes it was overly vulnerable. Sometimes it was this just right amount of vulnerable. Back then, it still made people uncomfortable because
Yeah.
vulnerability wasn't really big on LinkedIn yet. It is now, but I started finding my people, and it started becoming a lighthouse. Most people, when they do their sales pitch, they create this sales pitch in their summary that is focused on the problem they want to solve in this world and who they work with. There's stuff missing in that story. I focus on the belief that I have and the problem I want to solve in this world, And then I talk about when I was part of the problem.
Mm.
That's the street cred I want to give out there. It's like, there, look, I was a train wreck. And this is when I was part of the problem that I want to solve in this world. And here was my light bulb moment that went off. I said, whoa, man, things got to change. And then here are the people now that I've decided that I really want to serve and help. And here's a call to action on how to start that conversation. So that's how I started. I changed it up. And when people saw that I wasn't a perfect person or trying to be one, that's when I got people to reach out. And they were like, this guy I could feel comfortable opening up to. So before there was even a phone call, I had already established a level of trust because I had already put out my vulnerability for them. And they already felt like they kind of knew me in some ways. And I attracted people who aligned with my values. It started to not surprise me anymore when people were like, man, your story is like my story. I'm like, yeah, it's making sense now. Like,
Yeah.
you attract your people. You're a
You
lighthouse.
do.
There's a lot of coaches out
Yeah.
there. There's a million of us out there. I want to work with the people that I would want in my own circle. I get excited to work with them. They get excited to work with me. It's your values at the end of the day that is the tiebreaker between you and someone else. Doesn't mean I'm better than someone else. It just means I'm the right fit. So it's my value system and who I am that makes it this kind of the secret sauce, not just what I do.
You speak about vulnerability. When did you get to the point where you realize that that is a part of how you need to show up for people to be receptive to you?
I've kind of always had that. I was that way as a kid. I always felt like I could hear what wasn't being said. I could read people well. I could sense people's gifts and insecurities. Unfortunately, I was bullied like hell for that. Not everybody likes being seen. You're seen as overly sensitive. You're weird. And so, yeah, I mean, I had that bullied right out of me until I didn't make eye contact really with people until sophomore year of high school. And then later, as I moved on in life, I realized what I was bullied for was actually my superpower.
Yeah.
And learned to embrace that. I started learning to embrace in high school and started taking that on. And I realized vulnerability was like my greatest strength too. The big eye-opening moment though, was that first day in coaching class that I went to. I remember the first day, within the first couple of minutes, the two instructors said, hey, who wants to experience coaching? Who wants to be coached in front of the class? All right, I put my hand up. I was like, I pay a lot of money for this. I'm all in. And so I go up there and one of the coaches is coaching me about whatever's on my mind. I started talking about my situation. I was all in. I didn't care who was listening. I was bawling my ass off. I was angry. And we only did it for maybe 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But I remember the coach said, all right, let's take a break. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in there. I went to go get some water and both of them came up. And they said, holy cow, man, do you have any idea what you just did? And I was like, yeah, I cried. And they're like, you just gave permission for everyone in this class to go to that level. You just told everybody that it's safe to go that deep. And you did it within the first 15 minutes of this course. It's 3 days long. We don't normally get to this place until halfway through day 2. This is going to be a great weekend. And so I realized that, man, having the courage to share some vulnerability, and I had to learn what boundaries with vulnerability looked like over time, but doing that will give permission for others to do the same. And that feels really good.
So when you're speaking about vulnerability, right? It's I recently had a moment at residency where, I'm very comfortable. I have a great cohort.
Yeah.
And when we were just basically debriefing after an intense exercise, right? I'm typically the one, it's I'll be kind of coming in with a jab or the humor. That's how I'll kind of deal with it. But I'm not somebody who's afraid to share emotion, but it was really strange, how I found it very difficult. And then once I started talking, it was just I'm sorry. And my professor was just kind of yeah, you don't have to apologize. And it just came out. But it was just a floodgate because the exercise itself kind of tested and tapped into those repressed feelings.
Yeah.
And like listening to what you're saying, it's almost like that thought process of like it's going through that darkness, it's shitty, right? But there's a beauty in it. Like once you start to like when you kind of reflect back, I don't know, maybe I'm a little morbid here, but like looking at it, it's like when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, when you allow yourself to be open to that, like you were saying, it's like, instead of being like, like why am I being tested? Why is this happening? But kind of like, what's the lesson here? And trying
Yeah.
to be aware of that. That's just like such a light bulb moment. And when you're talking about the vulnerability, I'm just curious to kind of know, right? Like your superpower, um, dealing with it, working as a leader
Yeah.
in large organizations. How did that fare? Like, did it work to like in some ways it works to your advantage, but you know, typically when we're seeing it and like in the workspace or just traditional like male, female, like, when we're looking at it from that perspective, it's like the female's more vulnerable. Men, no, you hide your feelings. You kind of put on that mask.
Yeah.
Kind of curious to know how that fared you throughout your career.
Well, I know that when I took that class, I was one of only two guys in it. Typically, if there was another male in the course, they were much older. They were like in the sunset of their career, and they were going to turn into consultants. This was like a second half of their career now, you know. But younger guys like myself at the time, we were rare because it was predominantly female. And so what was fun was, I would kind of at face value get judged, like here's this guy, athletic and all that stuff. Like, he must be just raging masculine and all that stuff. Like, no, I'm balanced. Like, masculine and feminine's not a gender, it's an energy. And so
Mhm.
I know how to dance between those to best serve the person I'm working with and who I'm with. And I think that shows range, not just strength, but also range as a human. And yeah, it surprised people and then it made them feel safe. And so I had to lead with that. And, I used to call it rugged vulnerability, like, yeah, I'm strong and all those things. And I give off that vibe. And yeah, I can still be an alpha male, but also still demonstrate, feminine energy too and vulnerability, to create a safe space for the person I'm with. And yeah, I think that that's what made me more attractive to people as a coach, you know. And so and that's why I've been very fortunate where I've been kind of 50-50, you know, between male and female. And I've worked with a lot of people in the LGBT community too. And I've even helped some people come out of the closet, which has been amazing. Like, holy cow, it's honored. But I've been able to create a safe space that's attracted almost equally, kind of all genders. And I'm proud of that. That feels good because honestly, at the end of the day, all I want to do is create a safe place for people to be
Mhm.
broken and hurt and vulnerable and just give them that kind of space where they can do that. And I can help be their champion until they're strong enough to go out there and be their own again. So yeah, that's where I sit with that.
What book are you reading? What's your favorite books?
I don't think I have any. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, "Oh, I should read more." I just don't.
Green eggs and ham.
I don't like reading. I like Roald Dahl books. Like I remember that as a kid. Um, yeah, I do remember like one of the first books I read was Dale Carnegie. My grandmother gave it to me. How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's kind of like how to manipulate people, but it had some really smart, like intelligent ideas. Um, but yeah, I didn't read a lot of stuff. I didn't even read the textbook while I was taking the course. Really, you could, but I didn't want it to influence my class that I was taking. I wanted to go into it with no preconceived notion, and so I'd read the book like a little bit after the class and study that. But but yeah, I don't recall. There's been a few books. There was another one called The Business of Expertise that I liked. That was more of my career side, that I was reading. I ended up finally I got into some Harry Potter books when I designed my morning program because I'd never read them. And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. And so someone with ADHD, sometimes it's hard for me to focus
Yeah.
on that stuff. But man, I learned that reading fiction actually got me back into a creative space and I got lost in it. So, when I make that effort to do it, it happens. I did
Mhm.
enjoy it. Like I I've enjoyed reading and listening to a lot of uh, biographies about musicians and stuff. I love music, which aligns
Mhm.
with my desire for storytelling. So um, I'm really, really big into that. So yeah, as far as motivational books, there's not much out there.
Well, I think what's beautiful though is that you found the things that fill your cup, right?
Yeah,
And it doesn't have to be like a one fits all type situation. But you, like you said, reading the Harry Potters brought out your creativity.
yeah.
Like, so it's like really like there's no one path. And being able to
No,
like find what works for you is like it's beautiful. Because you have to do things to fill your cup to be able to pour out so much of what you were doing. And so you have
yeah.
to be able to be full in order to be able to pour into others. So
It's
what other things do
counterintuitive
you do
based
to
on
like,
society, though. Like it's
uh-huh.
counterintuitive to do these things
Mhm.
because it's like, well, you should hustle and grind. Like you don't have time to do silly things like read books that are not business development. That you have to listen to podcasts. Like you need to like always be learning something, and you don't have time to go play music. You don't have time. Like you got to hustle, and that's just absolute garbage. Um, it's just like your retirement savings. If you would put all your money into one stock, like you'd be feeling amazing in life if that one thing was performing well. And the moment it doesn't, you're like, I'm going to lose everything. Life is horrible. It's the same thing with your career. As long as your career is going great and that's what you love the most, you feel bulletproof. The moment your career doesn't go well, you're like, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose everything. You have to diversify your values portfolio. You need a variety of things. So if one thing starts to go off track and get wonky, you can lean into another one to give you some extra gas that motivates you to get that thing back and repaired again. So for me, and I learned some of this in the program that I was in, and I've kind of modified it to fit my vibe. But yeah, we all have 3 to 5 core values, I believe, and they're different than just saying like I value integrity and loyalty and all that stuff. um, what it is it's like, think of it as like a giant box, and this value could be something like reading. And if you open that box of reading, inside it would be all the things that it evokes in you. So when I read, I'd look in that box and I'd see creativity. I would see um, stillness, being grounded. I could see all these different characteristics or things that it brings out in me that make me a better human being. So that's why I'd want to visit that value, because it does all of these things for me. So reading's not one of mine. But I have one around nature, and I get my clients to name it something. We did that in the program too. I'm like, name the box, like name that thing something that is unique to you. I mean, I don't have to understand it, but if you said it, you would know what that is. It triggers something. I have one that I called Colorado because it reminded me of these mountains that I saw when I was there. I live in Maine and we have lots of mountains, but not like Colorado. Like, and I remember at a time in life when I was doing really bad, I was struggling and I was really overweight. I hiked this mountain, and I got to the top just like barely, like, struggling to breathe. I saw these mountains. I was just like, holy cow, my problems are so small, and and I felt like anything was possible up there. I had 360 degrees of perspective. I could look all around me and just everything was gorgeous. And it reminded me like, well, that's opportunity in life. Most of your opportunities are in your peripheral, not straight in front of you. And I had been looking at life like it was a hole in a straw, only what was in front of me. So once I got rid of the straw, I could see everything. I was like, holy cow, these are where the opportunities like God has for me. Is like it's in the peripheral. I got to be looking around here. So Colorado became a name of a value with nature, and because it brought out my love for my faith, it made me grounded. Also, it can evoke similar things as another value. They can have similar threads, but there's always going to be one or two things that are totally unique for that one that make it stand out on its own. And so, yeah, I realized I was like, okay, what are the activities that I can do that make that value come alive, either at its full level, like a big hiking trip, or the smallest level of working by a window, something to give me that. I look for anything to honor that value the best that I can. And I have two around music. I have one around listening to music, which takes me on a journey, allows me to be still. It allows me to connect with different chapters of my life. It allows me to dream. It allows me to be in a meditative state. It can inspire me. It can give me energy. It can make me cry. It can get me all kinds of things. It evokes a lot in me, and life is better with a soundtrack by far. And I think there's a quote that I live by. I can't remember who said it, but life without music is a mistake. And I really believe in that. And so like I have like 1,000 vinyl records over there on the side, and there's instruments all over my wall, that my son and I, those are playing. That's a different value. But listening to music, like it connects with my dad. I mean, he passed away a month after my son was born in 2013, and he taught me everything about the history of music. And so, yeah, I mean, when I listen to "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" on Pink Floyd, like I feel like I'm with him, And so there's been some amazing stories that have connected me with my dad since he's passed through music, and it's unexplainable. And then I have one for playing music, so playing guitar, singing, that helps me articulate emotions my words can't. And I'm able to get stuff out there. I need to perform music because it keeps me off the news. So it's a good thing for me. I need that outlet, I need to be able to express that. And I've learned that doing that is helping heal part of my brain injury. It's creating new neural pathways by learning something new, by doing something different for the brain. Like it's helping heal me. And I didn't know that. That was cool. And I was a late bloomer with music. Like, I had a hard time with it in some ways because of this thing too. It made it harder for me to memorize things, but I found a way, and it wasn't until 2 years ago. Like I was terrified to sing in public. Like it was speaking in front of thousands. That's easy. Like that's a piece of cake. I love that. Singing in front of people, holy smokes. Like that's a window to your soul. That's vulnerable, and it's like you're spilling your soul out, but you might not sound good doing it. And everyone's like, so, and I'm sharing a part of myself.
Yeah.
Finally, I just stopped caring. And I started doing more of it at open mics. And it started making me happier and happier. And I started building some confidence. And then 2 years ago, I went down to a pub here in town. And I said, "Hey, can I play here on a Saturday?" They're like, "Yeah, we'll pay you." I was like, "What? You pay me? Play my favorite songs?" All right, that's cool. It's like, it feels like a scam. But like, so I did, and I had a blast. And the funny thing was they were like, we were wondering when you were going to finally ask. You're always doing open mic here. I was like, oh shit. So again, you don't know what's possible till you ask.
Yeah.
And it's been 2 years now, and I have 4 venues that just booked me until December of next year.
Oh,
And I'm
that's
like,
awesome.
this has gotten out of control. This has escalated quickly. And I built music the same way I built my coaching practice, and I kept raising my rates and raising my rates and raising my rates, so it became a huge value of mine. And then it became this weird second business that's also empowered my son, who's 11 now, to pursue similar things. And he gets paid shows now. He's only a year into guitar, and he's surpassed me already.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. That's so annoying. But I was so proud of him too. So proud of him. I can still beat him vocally because his voice is changing, but my time is limited. But I'm so proud of him, and it's something we can share together. And even though he's surpassing me in some of that stuff, I can teach him the business side of it and still keep it fun, and I love that. And just like coaching, I chose, like, I want to honor my values too. And coaching and serving others is a value too. I want to honor the coaching industry by getting certified. You don't have to. Like anyone could watch a YouTube video and go, I'm a coach. I've been through some shit. I watched a YouTube video. But I was like, I'm in an unregulated industry, and we're kind of left to do whatever we want. And I don't take it for granted that we always will be. And I don't want to end up like with the rules that therapists have. You know, I love therapy, but they have a lot of rules. We have a lot of fun in our industry. So I want to protect it and I wanted to honor it. And so, yeah, I chose to get certified and I wanted to get educated. And in music, I wanted to honor that industry because I talked to a friend of mine who's a full-time musician. That's his livelihood. And he said something. He said, I'm really annoyed with people who are doing it just for tips. They're like, I'll play just for tips, or they're taking the job at venues that are saying, well, we can't pay you, but we can pay you in tips, you know, or they take low paying job. It undercuts the rest of us. This is our livelihood. And we're not getting chances, you know, because of these people who are going out there and not doing it for anything. I was like, holy shit. I was like, I need to treat this like it's a full-time career to honor them. And so I did. I was willing to say no to places. I was willing to ask for a lot. And in exchange, I'm sharing how I'm doing that with full-time musicians and just giving away what I'm doing to help them, you know, understanding pain points with venues, all these things. So yeah, I'm living my values now, and I have to have boundaries with it too, because I could create that and make it very stressful and do too much. But I'm having the time of my life performing. I never, ever thought that that would be a possibility. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm having a field day. And let's talk values too. I'm learning how to merge my coaching values and serving others into music. I do storytelling while I'm there. I share some stuff. I tell people what the songs mean to me. If people want to request a song that I have on a list, they send it to me via Venmo and it pops up on my phone and it says, Caitlin just requested The Sound of Silence. And so I can get on the mic and say, Caitlin, where are you? And they usually hate that. And I'm like, what does this song mean to you? You know, and they might scream it out and tell me, like, holy smokes. All right. And so I know that when they request these, they mean something to people. That's why if you go on my list of songs, you're not going to see Sweet Caroline on there or Friends in Low Places. It kills me inside to play them. I don't want to do it. You know, it doesn't connect with people. They have a good time. They have fun doing it. But like the other songs that I have, a lot of them take them to places, you know, to a summer that they had in life, you know, whatever. Like, oh, I remember that summer Jagged Little Pill came out and like, that was my year, you know, like all these things. So I play those kinds of songs, you know, a whole variety of genres. But yeah, it allows me to connect with people. And I've now I've converted some people from the audience to coaching clients, which blew my mind. And I was like, wow, I can be the same person on stage here as I am in my coaching business and who I am at home. And now I'm like, I want to do these personal, intimate events now, like 20 people in a room, comfy chairs, playing some music, and then talking about our values behind them and where did they take people, people sharing their love and like, all right, where were you in life when that came out? You know, what did you think was possible for you? Where should that song exist in your life today? You know, so I'm learning some dreams that I have on how to merge all of it together. And I'm like, these now I have 2 dream jobs. I was like, are you serious? This is amazing. Anything's possible.
You're showing people like you can live out your dreams, like you're living proof of, and it's a journey. Like you didn't get there in one day. Like you slowly got on this journey and started building and doing things, finding things that brought you joy and doing it more and learning about it, getting certified. Like you're doing the work. You didn't just show up asking for a handout. Like you did the work, which is beautiful. Christina, would you like to say something?
Thank you.
No, it's like agreed. It's like you did the work, and that's the hardest part is like, you know, is just kind of like working through your own challenges to get to that point. And that's what, you know, it's like to that is like I get frustrated when I'm like, how the heck when I'm seeing all this activity and it's like all like that just like that positive all this stuff like it's so easy. It's like it's not like, you know, I just I don't know what's on my LinkedIn feed anymore. You know, it's because I'm like I'm tired of this. But I just love that though. It's just you're talking about like it's just curious. It's like I guarantee 20 years ago, like 20-year ago, Matt wouldn't feel comfortable doing what you're doing now, right? Because it's like I'm a musician also, and I remembered 20 years ago all of my original work, like, and I've listened to it. I'm like, man, like that was my way of purging because I was someone who's not comfortable putting like, you know, I always had the mask on, right? And wasn't comfortable being vulnerable. And that's where it's like people connected because it's coming out. And that was my therapy in a sense. And now I look at it where I have that ability to just be who I am comfortably voice, or this is what's up, this is what's going on, this is how I'm feeling, that it's like if I were to sit there, my brother's like, why don't you write? I'm like, my songs would be about like my cats. And like, just
People love cats, though. There are a lot of cat people
like,
out there.
Yeah.
We should
there are a lot.
platinum with cats,
Listen,
It's
I
great.
totally could, but I am just like, I just don't, there could be like other outlets to do it, but I'm like, man, because I think it's just my mindset's just focused on another creative force. Maybe not
Well,
that.
it's
I don't
also,
know.
there's limiting beliefs that try and stop you from pursuing something. We all have that saboteur, that sabotaging voice. And the thing is that that voice you weren't born with, you've acquired it, you've inherited it
Mhm.
from sometimes well-intentioned adults that said stuff that made you afraid of doing things. And then you got burned and hurt in life too. That also programmed this voice to tell you, don't do that. This voice only shows up when you're about to take a risk that could result in something really cool.
Hmm.
You're vulnerable. Vulnerability means you could get hurt and fail, but it also means you could experience joy, and so there's a reason why vulnerability is awesome. And so, yeah, I know that when I sing in the beginning, like I could blow a note and just sound horrible, and that would suck. But I could also have a moment where everybody stops drinking and they put their drinks down and they're just like staring and they're like lost in it with me. And
Hmm.
that's beautiful when that happens. So, look, I remember my first open mics were in Branson, Missouri, of all places. I was working for Under Armour and I was traveling to Branson. And I'd travel with a little backpack guitar to learn how to play. And I'd play maybe in the lobby instead of my room so I didn't bother my neighbors. But I was playing outside, sitting on a sidewalk, with my iPad, just kind of strumming. And yeah, it was 2011 and this 2000, I don't know. And this guy came out of this Irish pub. He was like, "Hey man, we have an open mic and no one's in here. Do you want to come play?" I was like, "Can I use my iPad?" He's like, "Sure." And so yeah, they hooked me up and I did it, and I got all this praise. You know, it was the same feedback, like your guitar is okay, but hey man, what a voice, And I was like, cool. Two things happened. Like one, I had a hard time accepting praise for that. I was like super like, I don't know. But then the guitar thing fed into a sabotaging thing. Like, well, I can't be a musician because I'm not really good at guitar. My rhythm's weird, and I had all these things where I had to deny that I was a musician because I have to use an iPad, or my rhythm's not the best. And, I can only play chords really and all this stuff. I don't write my own music, so I'm not a musician. Finally, one day I just stopped. And like when somebody said, wow, are you a musician? I was like, yes. I just owned it. I was like, I'm my version of a musician. And I can ask for a lot of money even though I use an iPad, and I can ask for money even though I do cover songs. I advertise as I do, cover songs reimagined. They're mine. Like I make them mine, and they mean something to me. And I make sure that that is shown in how I express myself in a song. Even though it was someone else's, it's mine now because
Mhm.
of how it means to me, and I share that with everybody. So that's another version of vulnerability that people can have. But you need to get it out of your head, though, that it's impossible to make money doing something. Again, I learned very quickly that that could turn into something and mind blowing. And other musicians are like, that's not possible. Like those venues won't pay you that much. I'm like, yes, they will. I'm like, you just haven't asked. Also, if you listen to venue managers and their servers, maybe you'll find out their pain points and where they're hurting. If you can solve their pain points, they'll pay you anything. And so I learned that they don't like doing their marketing because they never have time for it. So I market my stuff. I make all the graphics. I write all the copy. I'm like, paste this on your site. I got you. Thank you. Musicians usually complain about that. Oh, they should be doing the marketing. They
Mm.
have 700 jobs. I do all that. I take care of it. I approach music as a business person first, then a musician. And I'm like, how can I drive your traffic? How can we get more people in here for you?
Mhm.
We work together. And then at the end, I tip the bar, $20. I give them something. They're like, no one tips us. The musicians never give us money. I'm like, well, we're all in this together. So, I show my appreciation, pick up after myself. I listen for the things that people aren't doing.
Yeah, that's so
So you
good.
do that. And I do the same thing for my clients in coaching. What's your pain point? Let's help you with this.
Mhm.
So I'm using music as just an example of how you can do these things. Now you can overcome some limiting beliefs and you can create something that's your dream into, again, a job that you would do for free. So now I have two jobs that I would do for free, if I could. But I'm going to charge anyways. And so,
You're gonna get paid for that.
because you should charge for what your gift is. That's the other
Absolutely.
thing I want people to know. Like, it's okay to charge for what you love to do. So many people feel guilty about that. Like they can't charge money for something they love, that you have to be miserable to get paid. No, if you love doing it, it's okay to charge money. That's a dream job. If you want to do it for free, that's congratulations. You figured it out for yourself. Do it. It's okay. You can charge because somebody else doesn't have your gift and they would like it. Just like you would pay someone for a gift that you don't have. I hate accounting. So I pay an accountant because somebody out there loves numbers. That's weird to me. But I'm grateful they exist, So
Absolutely.
I love that.
Oh man, we have covered a ton, right? Now it's just kind of like, all right, hire an accountant and just start singing to like whatever wildlife's outside.
I got to tell you, though, like a defining moment, though, that allowed me to make some big decisions in life, though, was 2020. I got COVID and I almost died. Like, it was bad. I had a very brutal version. It was like 34 days I fought this thing, 5 different hospitals, 10 days in critical care over Christmas. And that thing was horrible. And I remember how much I took for granted breathing. And all of a sudden I couldn't breathe on my own. That was humbling. And once I survived that, once I thrived through that, I was like, I'll do whatever I want. Like, what do I got to lose? Like, I don't care if I blow a note in front of a bunch of people. Fine, go big. I'm willing to go for that now. But like, that was humbling. I was like, I don't know. Plus, it was the second pandemic I beat. I had swine flu in 2009. Like, I'm unsinkable. You can't, you can beat the living crap out of me, but I'll get back up.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
I got faith on my side. I got everything working
Yes.
for me, and so I'm not scared to put my values out there and have people judge me. That's fine. And I remember one of the biggest, I have a value around faith. And I remember being nervous about putting that on LinkedIn and writing about that. I was like, oh man, I'll alienate some people that think I'm Bible thumping. And that's when I knew, I was like, oh, I have to write about it now. Damn it. Because I heard that voice.
Mhm.
And so that's why I put a scripture in my headline. And I was like, that's a bold move. And I wrote an
Yeah.
article about David and Goliath. And I just made it clear to people. I was like, look, whether you believe in this or not, this is a badass story. And there's great stuff to learn from it. So let's push all of our stuff aside here and let's just tell a good story here, And I had this scripture, and I don't describe it in my profile, I just have it in the headlines, 1 Samuel 17:48. And all it says is David ran towards Goliath. That's essentially what it says. I was like, what a cool visual that is. Like, who runs towards a giant, with a couple of stones in their hands, and nobody's rooting for you on either side of the field. Everyone's making fun of you. He wasn't a people pleaser by wearing the king's armor. He was like, I'm not going to wear that. He was willing to be laughed at. And he was decided to go out there in his own stuff that he's comfortable fighting in. He was a rule breaker because he wasn't going to fight like Goliath, who had a sword and a shield. He was going to play the long game, and that was kind of like, wait, that's not how we fight. And so he had this courageous heart for his faith, and that's why he did it. And he's the ultimate comeback story. He's the ultimate underdog story, and he's very human, very flawed, and he kept getting back up and kept pursuing things. Also insecure too, like I was, I remember someone in the coaching class looked at me, and we were using these metaphors about who we are. And I came up with mine as the courageous heart. But this guy also had faith too. And he's like, you're like David. And he's like, when are you going to take your throne, man? Like, how many times do you have to be called, to like be a king in your life? How many times do you have to deny it? Like he did so many times. And I was like, oh man, I hate you for saying that. But it clicked,
Yeah.
and so that's why, this is cool that this is actually next to me. That's why a lot of my clients, I'd send them a gift. And again, faith or not, like, I wrote that article and I got 300 new connections in one day, and that immediately squashed all of it. And how cool is it? Like when I get people who write to me and say, "Hey, I Googled that and looked it up. Like, that's interesting. What does that mean?" I'm like, "Oh, cool. You looked it up. That's neat." And so I wanted to create a safe place where people could talk about faith because I wanted to. I had a lot of questions about faith, and I didn't feel safe always talking about it. People would look at me funny. I was like, why are dinosaurs not in the Bible? Is that weird to ask? Like, like, and then usually it was like, you're not in our prayer group anymore. Um, and so, I started giving people these gifts, and I have this like traditional sling that's something David would have used, made out of jute twine, this leather. It's got the wax tips. It's functional too. Your thumb goes through it. It works. So this guy makes them in Arkansas, and I found him on Etsy. But the real thing is I got this stone, and I get these from a contact I have out in Israel. She goes out in the Valley of Elah, and she finds these for me. She goes into the brook where David would have grabbed these stones, and it's all like they're all kind of rounded over centuries of being in there. And so I have the official rocks that come from where the battleground was. How rad is that? And so I give them into this little box, and I give them the scripture, and I give them the note, and it says, run towards your giants.
I love that.
That's
amazing.
What are the giants in your life that you should be running towards? And you got to look in the mirror sometimes and wonder if you're actually your own giant. And also understanding too, that you might be David in your story or in someone else's story, but you might be a Goliath in someone else's. You got to own that, you just got to own that sometimes. Because you just showing up in life as who you are and your own values might make you a Goliath in someone's life because they're terrified of you. So yeah, run towards your giants with a courageous heart. And then that's when you can really start conquering life.
That's all day. Listen,
I know.
I remember though, I was like, again, I'm curious about faith, and I was just like, well, if he had such a belief in God, why did he grab more than one stone? They're like, okay, look, he's still human. Like, he didn't know he'd take him out in one shot. Like, so, but I love that I ask questions. So,
you should.
And I tell people, I make it very comfortable for people who talk to me in kind of discovery calls. Like, I'm like, I'll work with people in any like faith that you have. I don't care if you're a Jedi. Like, as long as you believe in something bigger than you, we can have a great conversation. If you don't, I'm not judging you. I just don't know how to connect with you if you don't believe in anything bigger than you. We're not going to be the right fit. So as long as you believe in something bigger than you, that's cool. I've just learned that most people, when they say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, the first question I always ask is like, what church hurt you? Like, what human hurt you? And I was like, and God took the fall for it, because a man or somebody hurt you. But it's a beautiful journey. People start to open up. And I love that.
That's the beauty in it, right? And it's like, right, and what's awesome, there's so many, this is awesome. I appreciate this conversation because we've seen so many different sides of you, which is awesome. But, really just talking about like, really just reinforcing that you can rewrite the story. Like your story is constantly going, there's going to be additional chapters.
It's never too late to write a comeback.
That's it. That's it. It's never too late to write a comeback. But to kind of close this out, Matt, like what makes you an unregulated leader? What is it about you?
Unhinged. Like an unhinged leader. An unregulated leader. I just don't give a shit. So like, to be honest, like I'm a rule breaker. I have it in my LinkedIn headline too. I do appreciate some rules. Like, I still wear a seatbelt. It makes sense. But like, there are some rules out there that society has written that are just kind of unwritten rules though. Like society says this, society says you should have a 6-figure job and be happy. Society says you need to drive this car, wear these clothes. It's absolute garbage. I believe in breaking rules that are kind of unwritten and go against the norm. I'm not meant to be in a box. I like finding other people that, are designed for something else. It's okay if you like the box too. That's all right. Let me help you thrive in that though. Let's find a box for you. Other people who are stuck in a box that aren't made for it, let's find the thing for you so you can finally just be who you are, unhinged, and that is what lights me up. That's what I finally had the courage of doing. And I was willing for people to not like me anymore because of who I am and who I chose to show up to be. Because the second I let go of those people, two things happen. One, they could go on their own journey and meet people that align with them. I'm not hanging on to something. I'm actually serving them too. And two, I've now created a vacancy in my life for somebody new to show up that does align with my values.
That's so good.
That's the scary part is you are going to be alone for a little bit. It's going to happen.
Okay.
You're going to be a little alone. You need to be. Gotta be alone. It's important. You need to be comfortable with yourself and not rely on a circle of friends to make you feel full. Like your circle of friends should make your cup overflow.
Yeah.
You need to learn how to fill your own cup and keep that full. And then everything else you do in life is just going to make it overflow. So that's why I despise that line, "You complete me." I'm like, God, it's garbage. I know it sounds pretty and stuff. Wow. But like nobody should complete you. You should just make the cup overflow.
You should put that on a t-shirt. Do you have a t-shirt?
Yes.
Like you just keep going up these gems. Like you need
they just keep making shirts. Yeah.
That's the other business that he's going to tap into.
I have one that says "walking red flag" just to put it out there for people as I'm going down the street.
That's it.
So good. This was such a great conversation. And just to see you already living out what it is that you're talking about is empowering for people to see. So we really appreciate you coming and chatting with us. This has been an amazing conversation. I got to go find you on LinkedIn to go, right? Like,
I'm starting to write more again. I took a big break for a while, and that's okay to do too. I want people to know that it's okay to take a break.
For sure.
If you got to get your health right. But yeah, I'm starting to write again. It feels good. Starting to get more stuff out there. It feels nice. It feels nice to be on podcasts again. So I'm very grateful to be invited, to this, because I used to do them all the time. And then I stopped for a while because I just needed a break.
Yeah.
So speaking last month, a couple of weeks ago at the gathering in Alberta, like that was a dream come true. It was an absolute dream. It was a bigger dream to me than the TED Talk. To go serve with the list of people they had there and feel like I was actually worthy of it. Was amazing. And so, yeah, I'm back in the game and I feel unstoppable.
I'm glad you stopped by us on your
on your unstoppable tour.
Right on.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate both of you very, very much. Is there anything I can do to best serve you guys?
This conversation filled my cup, man.
Yeah, listen.
Good.
Yeah, this was good.
I'm honored.
Yeah, this was good. So thank you.